As a side note, just for a second, why am I only seeing James on my screen? Why am I not seeing
Because I'm awesome.
There you go.
that's I think relative. It depends on.
See, I've left you speechless. That's why I'm on your
I can't,
screen.
I can't find the right word. I think that's all a matter of opinion, is what I mean. But no, I literally, you're the only one. You're the only video feed I'm seeing.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Discussions with the Devil. I am That Salty Devil.
I am Motormouth Midget, or Mouthy, and we have my buddy James and Ape Shit. We are officially calling him Ape Shit.
Yes, and just for clarification, so my name is Ethan. I have a channel called Falling Ape Productions, and that's where the ape shit comes from.
No, the ape shit comes from the fact that you are ape shit.
Yeah, I guess that too.
And my secret code name is James.
Yeah.
It's very, very original.
Yeah.
Wait, it works.
Yeah,
I mean, we could do what I did when I first met you and start calling you Alter Plier.
You could, yeah.
Because
nice.
if anybody watching, anybody watching this after we record it, the first time I met James, I got really confused because we met at Dragon Con, and actually, Ethan and I know James from Dragon Con because Ethan was with me, and I was going to donate blood because they had a blood drive during the convention, which I thought was really cool.
Yeah, I don't know where did you get all those bags of blood from?
What's that?
Where did you get all those bags of blood from that you were donating?
You know what? Shut your hole.
It's like, I just keep a surplus of it in my freezer just in case. Never know,
Yeah.
when you're gonna.
No, Ethan and I met James at Dragon Con in Atlanta, and it just so happened I got really confused because my instant reaction was that he looked like another YouTuber named Markiplier.
Yes.
And I later found out that he never knew who Markiplier was until people started confusing him for Markiplier.
Then I was just walking around because I had a camera on my bag capturing a 360 video. And I was just walking around pointing at people and be like and subscribe, like and subscribe.
So essentially, you probably got Markiplier a lot of new subscribers.
Maybe like two. There was a kid. There was a friend of my girlfriend's who met up with us there, and his little kid actually thought I was Markiplier. And when I went out to dinner with them, he was just like in awe, and I was just like, "Hey, keep following,"
I still need to find a way to get you to meet him just to see what his reaction is.
It'll be the same as like we don't look alike. It's just you people think we all look alike.
No,
What do
we're
you
not
mean,
crazy.
people?
You're the crazy one.
Oh man. Yeah, definitely go to hell. But in all seriousness, though, I guess what are we discussing today, Molly?
Well, one thing I want to touch on. This is not for people that are watching this. This is not the first time we've tried to record. We had some audio and video issues when it came to editing the very first episode. I don't know if we might be able to recover that at some point. I don't know. But the one thing I wanted to touch on is when we were doing test recording yesterday. And Ethan, I know you weren't involved in that, but James, obviously you were. You had suggested that we kind of come up with an overarching sort of theme for the podcast to better attract people to it, so that they kind of knew what they were getting themselves into. And I typed it into the Facebook chat with Salty, and now I don't remember my specific phrasing, but it's basically, you know, discussions with the devil, topics, something along the lines of topics that help us better understand the human condition. So that kind of gives us the ability to talk about many topics, but we're going to discuss them from the perspective of how they impact the people that, you know, encounter, you know, certain, you know, instances of, you know, whatever we talk about.
I'm so glad that you picked that theme instead of the one you were going for, the whole Madonna bra and how it affected society. This one's way better.
What?
Way better.
Well, wait, is that necessarily off the docket? Because if we can attribute that to the human condition, we could still talk about it.
I really thought this episode was not going to go off the rails, but I think I had high hopes, and yeah, no.
Hey, that's okay. This is it's still entertaining regardless. You know, we'll maintain the topic and everything, but throwing in a little jokes here and there is not gonna hurt anything.
I'm just kind of hoping with all of the you know, veering off the beaten path that we're going to be able to stay on the path.
Fair enough. I get that.
So one of the things, and I want to, because I think this is going to be a constant theme within our discussions. One of the things that I think is valuable to our discussions is the fact that Ethan has a degree in philosophy. So a lot of the discussion is going to be centered around like a philosophical approach and trying to kind of analyze things from a more intellectual perspective. And I'm often going to kind of throw it to him to kind of analyze certain things that we talk about.
Well, let's not set the bar too high.
Well, I can't set bars too high because I'm short, so let's not go there.
Okay.
So he basically just said it's all on you. Like,
yeah, I'm like, what did I get myself into?
No, it's not so much that it's all on you. It's the fact that you have a very unique set of skills, and I just sounded like Liam Neeson, and I haven't even seen Taken yet. But you have a very unique perspective that you can analyze things from, and I think that that's important. Because with my main channel, my objective was to talk about things that I thought deserved to be have a conversation, like things that needed to be conversed about. And I think that to really converse, we had to do something like this, as far as actually having a conversation with somebody. And I think that analyzing it from a philosophical perspective kind of gets deeper into, you know, the purpose of things, the purpose of what we're talking about.
All right. Well, yeah, I mean, we can all definitely try to do that. I think each of our limitations is just, you know, the right questions to ask.
Yes.
So.
Well, as far as limitations go, we're the ones with limitations. You're the one with a degree. So, I mean, you kind of have the upper hand.
You have a very particular set of skills that you've honed over years of training.
Here we go. Salty's trying to do ASMR. This is not this kind of podcast.
Okay.
So basically, to sort of try and jump into the subject that I wanted to discuss, there is a YouTuber that I follow named Tim Pool, and I think it was one of his older videos that came up on my recommended this morning, and it was about Terry Crews being attacked by the liberal media and liberals in general because he was talking about how kids today and kids in general, whether it's today or, in previous generations, he feels that it's necessary for them to be able to become a well-rounded person. They need the perspectives of, strong male and female roles in their lives. And a lot of people were attacking him, saying that his statement was very homophobic. And it started to make me wonder, because when I heard him say that, I didn't take it as that, because I feel like whether you are a child that is raised by a mother and a father, or you're a child that is raised by same-sex parents, I think that it still stands true that you should have strong male and female roles or role models in your life. I mean, for me personally, and this is me hoping that none of my family ever, decides to find this podcast, because it probably wouldn't go over well with them. I grew up with just my mom, like single parent. My dad was kind of involved in my life when I was younger, but I didn't really find out until I was a teenager that my dad was actually gay. Not that it bothered me, because, whatever. It didn't really have any impact on me. But I realized as I got to be a teenager, I realized that growing up with just my mom, I was kind of missing that strong male role in my life, because I have a very contentious relationship with my father, in the sense that he's not a strong male role model for me. Like, I had my mom's dad as a strong male role model, but my grandfather was old enough to the point where it was hard for him to really be super active in my life because he was older. So I never really had a strong male role, and I've always kind of struggled with that. So I'm curious with you guys, what your perspectives are on, how kids are raised, and like the perspective of the parental structure of a household as it pertains to, raising kids and making sure that they have the right influences in their life.
Well, see, I kind of have an interesting interpretation of that, because my mom and dad, they got divorced when I was 7, but and for the most part, my mom, raised me. My dad's still in the picture. He's a great guy. He's really made leaps and bounds as far as like everything that's happened and everything in his life, and he's a great person to talk to. But like predominantly I was raised by my mom, and she made every effort to make sure that I was taken care of, and I didn't really need to want for anything. She wishes she could have given me more, but it was just the nature of the beast, single mom raising a child. As far as like, male and female roles, like I feel like in this day and age, it's kind of like old terminology, because at this point where the roles don't necessarily fall to either male or female. And I still had my dad, and I still had my mom. I was just mostly with my mom. But she would play the role, of what my dad would do when I wasn't with him. So like, I guess it all kind of depends on perspective, but they did what they could. Even though my dad didn't have me all the time. So, I mean, the way I see it, it kind of varies from house to house. But that's just my thought. Like, she raised me to basically be an honorable person, and I generally care about, the people that I give the time to talk to. So like, I'm talking to you guys right now. It's because I care. So,
are there things that you can differentiate though that your mom taught you as opposed to your dad? That's what I mean. Basically, I feel like even though one parent can take on both roles, I still think that individually there are things that only a female can provide in their way of nurturing and teaching, and I feel like there are ways that only a male can. I think it's just biological.
I mean, if you remove gender from the equation, it's just things being taught you.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I'm getting at. It's not even so much about the gender or anything, because like they both equally taught me things, and for the most part they were pretty much the same things, or in the same category. So it's kind of hard for me to really, I guess, pinpoint exactly what was different, because they did the best they could for what time they had.
Yeah.
So I mean, I guess it kind of depends on I guess how you look at it. Like for me, I think they did great. They both taught me basically to care for people, but to also know when I need to step back.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, like, because I wouldn't necessarily say a people pleaser or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm a very compassionate person. Sometimes there are times where I need to take a step back and realize that what I'm doing isn't jiving.
That males and females approach emotion differently, and if you ask any of my close friends, I have attachment and detachment issues, or at least I had them, whereas if I felt close to somebody, like I instantly became attached to them. And if they ended up, doing wrong by me at some point, it ended up kind of breaking me. And like I would kind of disconnect and not really know how to deal with it. But the part of me that is supposed to kind of push them out of my life for my own sake, I didn't actually learn how to do that until I was probably 30, so 4 years ago, because I was still so hell-bent on trying to keep people in my life that I was afraid of losing anybody. But having I don't want to say more, but there were more male friends that I started to develop, and they started to teach me better ways to, handle things. And from kind of a more detached perspective, where I wasn't constantly a roller coaster of emotions if, somebody decided to be an asshole and do wrong by me. So I think that, like I said, I do feel that there are specific things that a male and a female can bring into teaching, a child, not necessarily looking at it from a gender perspective, but, a personality trait, because I do think that males and females do have individual personality traits.
Well, I challenge that with, if you never met these male friends and learned these behaviors from them, you would only have what you learned from your mom. Now, say you had a kid and taught what you learned from your mom to the child, that child learned it from a male, so all those behaviors are now male behaviors that he's learning.
You're not wrong, and I completely agree with that. But for me personally, if I didn't start having, male examples in my life on a regular basis, I probably wouldn't be talking to you guys right now, because I would be completely disconnected from everybody.
Okay.
I would be legitimately antisocial.
All right. Oh. Yeah. I mean, I'm sorry, Ethan. Go ahead.
Well, I don't know. I mean, it seems like we're talking about kind of two different things. Like, I almost want to say like a skill set / how to handle things versus character. And just for everyone's information, I did find this article about Terry Crews's actual words on Twitter here. I guess it began on Twitter as like an online conversation. Oh, excuse me. An online conversation. Let's see. Crews tweeted, women can speak with us, just not for us. He goes on to saying, I've reiterated many times that same-sex couples and single parents can successfully raise a child, but I believe paternal and maternal love are like vitamins and minerals to humanity. No matter where you get the paternal and maternal love, no matter where you get the paternal or maternal love, my purpose is to give paternal love. So that's kind of the basic of what he said. But I have to agree with what you guys have been saying. It doesn't seem like it matters the source of where you're learning your character. Like if you're in a single parent household and either your mother or your father, whoever's raising you, teaches you to be compassionate, if you're accumulating skills to have a good character, I don't think it matters whether it's, quote, paternal or maternal, because
I think with the way that my mom taught me, I became too emotionally connected to people, and I think that was damaging for me in a way. So I needed a different perspective to kind of even things out.
Okay, but I mean, I want to know what actually did the damaging, because no one should be guilty for being a good person. If you experienced other people who were disrespectful or disattached or what have you, that the faults shouldn't be put on you. I mean, if you were trusting and empathetic and a loyal friend, I mean that says a whole lot more about you than your friends, and your friends' actions say a whole lot more about them than it does about you.
And I get that, but one of the things that I believe that Yumi and Salty were talking about this, my mom had always raised me as a kid telling me the one who dies with the most friends wins. So that was always ingrained into me until I was in my late 20s. And that's why I always tried to keep people around, even if they were bad for me. So when I started to have different influences in my life, it didn't really replace what my mom taught me, but it evened it out and made me, think about how to approach things from a different perspective. And it helped me out, mentally and emotionally, because I had that different perspective.
Okay, but those perspectives don't necessarily have to have a gender attached to them. Like a male could have easily said the same thing.
And I get that, but for me, I understand what Terry was saying, because I had that experience where I was primarily influenced by my mom for a certain amount of time, but I realized that having a different perspective in my life, and you're right, it doesn't necessarily mean that gender has to be attached to it, but I do think that both males and females bring something unique to the education of our youth.
But what is it that you're saying females bring and males bring?
I think females bring more of a nurturing, kind of emotional education, whereas males seem to be more tactful and logical, because my logic didn't really develop until I was probably in my late teens, when I started to have more male friends. Like, my logic was all over the place and it didn't really exist.
But see, even your example, you're saying it's a learned behavior, not genetic.
I wasn't trying to say that it was genetic. I'm saying,
by describing it to male, like, this comes from a male, it's because he's male, not because he's learned these behaviors.
I get that. What you learn from your elders is taught to them from their elders, but it just seems like, at least in my experience, this may not be everybody's experience, I did learn different things from the males and the females in my life, so I understand what Terry is saying.
Okay. Yeah, I get where you're coming from. But both both James and Ethan, they also kind of bring up a good point too, because like everybody's experience is going to be a little bit different. With I guess roles in somebody's lives, that whether male or female, it's kind of irrelevant. The way I see it, having good role models, throughout the family, or not even necessarily just in the family, just somebody that's influential in your life, that you can learn a lot from that. It doesn't even matter whether they're, male, female, transgender, or anything like that.
Right.
So like I got my dad's he's really knowledgeable a lot of stuff. Very religious man. Love him to death. He didn't used to be like that. But whether I follow, the book or whatever, he always offers like good insight, whenever I ask him. But the same could also be said about my mom. But my mom has a different approach. Whereas my dad is more likely to actually go to a physical church and do it a little bit more, literally, and not in a, extremist bad way or anything. But then, my mom, doesn't 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 believe that you have to physically go somewhere. So she offers a lot of different perspectives on that, as far as like day-to-day life and things that we typically have to deal with in our day-to-day lives, or even off-the-wall things. So they all have like an equal amount of things to offer. But to kind of like pinpoint it as if for male or female, kind of irrelevant. They even though they've been divorced, they still tend to they're what they're saying to me to try to develop me into a stronger adult and everything. It still tends to mesh properly. But with that also being said, one of my best friends, I'm not going to mention him or whatever. We've known each other since kids and everything. He's gay. But he's also been, a big influence in my life. I don't get to see him nearly as much, but what he did taught me, I will always remember. I think it kind of depends on the dynamic to which you are living. And as far as like pinpointing it down to a role, I think it's kind of irrelevant. I think it's just life lessons.
And actually, now that you say that, it's got me with the same thought process, but approaching it differently, where taking gender roles out of it. If any of the four of us went skydiving, all four of us are going to go skydiving at the same time, but we may each get something different out of it. And I think that's what I was trying to say, is maybe taking the gender roles out of it, looking at it from the perspective of your experience. Everybody's going to experience something differently. So I think that's what I meant when it comes to bringing a different perspective. Maybe they're both teaching me the same thing, but they're teaching me from a different perspective so that I can apply both of those perspectives to see kind of what results I can get from it.
Okay. So yeah, I can see where you're coming from on that.
I apologize. I wasn't trying to specifically attribute it to gender. I was struggling. I think I was struggling to find the words, but I think that whether you are male or female, I think that every individual has, a different experience in life.
Yeah, and I think that's a big lesson to learn, because like, I would throughout my time in the military or whatever, I've learned a lot from like people that I wouldn't even give the time of day had I not been in the military. You kind of get to a point where you learn that everybody wears the same uniform. It doesn't matter whether they're part of LGBT, or whether they're black, white, Hispanic. It doesn't matter, male, female. We're all on the same page. We're all people. Everybody has a different experience and different perspectives, and to be able to absorb that and kind of see where they're coming from, I think is vital for personal growth. So, I mean, it doesn't even just have to be in the family. It can be just people that you connect with along your journey.